Hi folks, Professor Omachi. Wanted to show you how to use Postman to interact with a Cisco SD-WAN REST API instance. So what we're going to be doing is starting up our own reservable sandbox. Use Postman to interact with that to make sure our REST API calls are going okay. And then we're going to generate some Python code with it. Okay, so if you're ready, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing you'll want to do is come out here to developer.cisco.com and then go ahead and log in. Okay, so where we want to go is the sandbox. Click over here for getting started with sandbox over here, and then this is going to reveal the entire portfolio here, the lab catalog. As of now, it's about 75 labs here, so we can parse this down a little bit by going to search sandbox labs. Let's look for the SD-WAN labs, and there is a always on version that's right here. There's a multi-domain sandbox, but the way that the lab is written, it's gonna want certain things, so we're gonna go out here to the reservable. Okay, I'm gonna schedule this for about 4 hours. Okay, yeah, that's fine. And then we reserve like this, and it's going to give us this nice little topology right here. Check this out. Open up this here for output. For output here, just go ahead and have this off to the side or something like that, because this output here is going to contain your VPN access. Your VPN access is going to have the gateway, which VPN endpoint, what port number, and your username and passwords. Okay, so if you don't have this already, come out here to VPN access. Go ahead and download the Cisco AnyConnect VPN client software, or you can use the OpenConnect GUI, I believe, and we should be good. So I'll go ahead and pause right here for the lab setup and for you to install your VPN client software. Okay, so here are our credentials here. Why don't we copy these out and then start up our Cisco AnyConnect Secure Mobility Client. Okay, cool. So what we have here is we got this here where it's asking for the gateway. So we can connect to there, and then it's going to ask for the username and then the password here. And then now our VPN is ready to go. So here's something else that we'll need to do is let's bring up our VS Code environment here. And as you can see, we're under the code directory here. And we are also in the code directory in our shell. So let's just go ahead and execute this. We're going to git clone this, the getting started with Cisco SD-WAN REST APIs. So we're going to pull this locally. Okay. And that's going to give you this folder that's right here, getting started with Cisco SD-WAN REST APIs. For the first portion here, we are going to need to use Postman. And once you have Postman loaded, in our example here, I'm starting out just like I had no collections, no environments going. So for this particular lab, what we're going to do is click on import. Okay, the folder that we're going to import here, it's going to be under our code directory. Okay, code right down here, it's going to be getting started with Cisco SD-WAN REST APIs. And then there should be a folder here called Postman. So let's go ahead and select that. We'll click on Open. And this should open up here the reservable SD-WAN environment. Okay, so good. Let's go ahead and see what we got under here. Okay, so now we are at the lab here. This is using Postman to interact with the Cisco SD-WAN REST API. I'll go ahead and link to this particular lab in the description below. So in this learning lab, we're going to interact with the Cisco SD-WAN REST API from a third-party perspective using Postman. Postman's a popular REST API that you can also download from their website. So our objectives here is to understand how to interact with the Cisco SD-WAN REST API, and then using the code option in Postman to generate some Python code, which will be used to automate configuration and management tasks here. For the first thing that we're going to want to do with the Postman configuration, check out the preferences here. Look for SSL cert verification. Make sure this is turned off. And after we've successfully imported these environments here, or the collections here, and the environments, let's take a look at this. So our vmanage here, the initial value here, and the current value is 10.10.2090. We have the username is admin. The password is this here, and the port number is 8443. I believe these are the credentials here. Yep, looks like the credentials. So I think we're going to be good there. So under our collections, over on the sidebar here, click on collections. We have authentication here. So we got get token, post authentication there, and then we also got some fabric devices here, some get requests that are pre-done for us. So next step 2 here is authentication. The first step in interacting with an API is usually authentication. Authentication ensures that only legitimate users have access to the API. We can further limit the access by taking advantage of RBAC features, which enable you to assign users to specific groups with limited permissions, such as administrator or operator, or view only, or something you would probably give to your L1 help desk. This section here is going to provide an overview of the authentication. So let's create an authentication call. The authentication call is a post call. See under here, post authentication. To define the endpoint for the authentication call, you can use the variable here called vmanage. These variables will be replaced with the ones that you already have defined in your environment. Okay, so that means in the environment here, vmanage and port. Vmanage and port. That should be out over here. Vmanage is this IP, and this is the port over here. After the variables are replaced here, the resulting endpoint for authentication is we're going to have the IP address, and then we're going to go through a security check. Under the headers tab here, we define the content type. For Cisco SD-WAN authentication, the type is this, X_dub form URL encoded. The username and password are URL encoded in the body. All right, so let's see what happens if we hit send. Okay, and this says could not send request. Why is that? Oh, right over here where it says no environment here. Why don't we click the Cisco reservable SD-WAN environment? It's very important for us to have this environment already loaded for us because that's what contains all of the variables here. Okay, so once that's loaded and we got this going, let's go ahead and send our post request again. And cool, look at this, status is 200, so that meant it worked there. And notice a cookie named JSessionID was returned. Okay, that's down over here. JSessionID. So the cookie was returned from 10.10.2090 over in our lab. This cookie has a limited lifetime and is a temporary representation of the successful authentication. This feature here adds protection against cross-site request forgery, CSRF, that could occur when using Cisco SD-WAN REST APIs. This protection is provided by including a CSRF token with API requests. Let's get on to the next step here, which is get SD-WAN fabric devices and their status. So yes, we successfully got our cookie here. We can now obtain the data that we want from the Cisco SD-WAN REST API. In the Postman collection that we have over here, there should be a folder called SD-WAN Fabric Devices. That's right here. And it has several API calls, several GET calls here. The Fabric Devices API call, this one here, this uses a GET method and the Data Service Device endpoint to obtain a JSON formatted list of all the devices that are part of the SD-WAN fabric. The output of this call is the same one you got in a previous lab, but in this case, you're going to be using Postman to obtain fabric information. So let's hit send here and let's see what we get. So cool, we got JSON here. And how about if we do this too? Let's just take a look. JSON Viewer, this one's the anything will do. Then JSON Viewer. So yeah, check this out. We got object. We got this under here. Our header is this. View keys. And then here it looks like vmanage, vedge, vedge, vbond. So we got a nice little structure that's going out in here. If you do not get a response that's looking something like this, make sure that you have a JSessionID cookie. All right, the next API in this collection is called device status, and it uses the get method right here. Data service device monitor. It's going to use this endpoint to obtain specific information regarding the status of all devices in the fabric. The output of this API call should be also familiar if you already completed the first part of the lab. Right? Excellent. So we get our status 200 OK and we get our JSON back here. Okay, so we saw two ways to interact with the Cisco SD-WAN REST API using Postman to get a list of devices in the fabric and their status. So let's get some additional information about maybe the interface status and the device counters. So let's hit device counters over here. And as you could tell, the endpoint here is data service, device, and counters here. The next API, this is going to use the get method here. Once we press send, let's see what we get here. We get our status 200 OK here, and we're going to see output like this. It's going to be our system IP, reboot count, crash count. Yep, system IPs of all of our equipment here. So now we've learned how to authenticate to the Cisco SD-WAN REST API and how to interact with it by extracting data using Postman here. Postman has another very useful feature called code generation. So once you build your API call, you can specify Postman here to help generate your code. So let's try this. So for this post authentication that's right here, why don't we try to generate some Python request code right here? And this is it. This is import request. Here's our URL. Here's our payload. Here's our headers, and then the cookie is out here, response here, and then we can print our response text. So we should be able to come out here. So if we do this, head on out here to code here, and then let's just build something, shall we? So getting started with Cisco SD-WAN REST API. So yeah, let's just change directory into there. So cd getting started with that. Let's create a brand new file in here. So we can right click there. Let's do new file. Let's do SDWAN auth.py. Okay, go ahead and throw that into there. Then go ahead and save it. And then we should be able to run Python. That was the SD-WAN auth. No module name requests. I guess we need to pip3 install requests. Okay, so there it is, installing pip3 request there. Okay, good. So then why don't we do clear Python 3 SD-WAN auth.py. Okay, so then we're having SSL certificate verify failed. So the certificate verify failed. Of course, we're gonna see that. So let's see, how do we put into code here that we don't want to check for SSL? Okay, so how about we try this here, verify false. Okay, go ahead and save that. How about we clear this and rerun? Okay, and that looks like a warning here. Insecure request warning. Unverified HTTPS request is being made to what we already know. This is our reservable sandbox. Adding a certificate verification, strongly advised. Yeah, okay. I wonder then if we can even further modify this by saying from URL lib3 exceptions, import insecure request warning, and then say disable those warnings. Okay, so let's save that. Let's try again. Okay, cool. So now we know that this is working. It's disabling the warnings, and it's doing a verify false for the SSL cert. So cool. We kind of know this is working now. And HTTP post method is not supported by this URL. Okay, that's fine. Let's try another one in Postman where we do get token. Maybe this will give us something else here too. So our headers here, under here, we're going to do this. Here's our cookie, our session, the J session over here. And let's see if it works first on getting a token. Cool. So we did get a auth token here for us to use. That status was 200 OK. And we received the token out right over here. So cool. Why don't we generate Python request code to get a token? All right, so that's that there. Let's go back to VS Code. This is SD-WAN auth right here. So SD-WAN get token. How about we try that? Let's do save as SD-WAN token. Okay, so we'll save it like that. We already know that we are going to need those things there. So the import request, we know that URL lib, we know we're going to need that. The URL here, we know we're going to need this, and then we can grab this. And from about URL, we can paste this in. And then remember, we're going to get the SSL cert verify false. Okay, so don't check for SSL cert and don't warn us either. Okay, so Python 3 SD-WAN token.py. Let's go ahead and see if we can run this. Awesome. So here is our token. And I think we have our screenshot for the particular lab here. So as you can see, we can use Postman to help generate Python code for us. And then it gets us at a good starting point. And as you could see, we kind of had to insert a few things here to suppress only the single warning from, that SSL cert warning there. And then we also had to throw in the verify false so we don't check for SSL as well. But yeah, as you can see, we got our token here generated. And that was the SD-WAN token.py. This will be the screenshot that you use for this lab right here, the using Postman to interact with Cisco SD-WAN REST API. So yeah, let's hit preview. Yep, after successfully completing all the steps, take a screenshot. And then this will be our screenshot. Okay, that's gonna do it. Hope you found this really helpful and interesting and a little bit of fun, because I sure did have fun putting this one together for you as well. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next.